evening, it's Wednesday the 23rd of July and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Diplomatic rift, US announces second withdrawal from UNESCO amid ongoing policy disagreement. Rock legend, Black Sabbath frontman Ozzy Osbourne dies at 76, marking end of a heavy metal era. Bear behavior, scientists examines tree scratching habits to understand wildlife communication patterns.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Akwil Qureshi.
Good evening once again. The United States has announced its second withdrawal from UNESCO, citing national interest concerns. The move set to take effect in December 2026 drew regret from UNESCO Director General Audrey Azoulay, who says the agency remains prepared and resilient.
A White House spokesperson announced on Tuesday, July 22nd, that the withdrawal will take effect in December 2026, adding that the country's continued participation in the agency is not in its national interest. U.S. officials criticized UNESCO's agenda, highlighting its diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and its 2011 acceptance of Palestine as misaligned with U.S. values. This marks the third U.S. departure following exits in 1984 under the Reagan administration and 2017 under Trump, with the U.S. then rejoining in 2003 and 2023 respectively. U.S. financial contributions currently represent approximately 8% of UNESCO's budget, down from over 20% previously. UNESCO's Director General Audrey Azoulay expressed deep regret, but emphasized that the agency is prepared both financially and operationally.
The US and Japan have reached a landmark trade agreement, reducing tariff on Japanese goods, including others, to 15% down from the previously threatened 25%, as part of a deal also securing $550 billion in Japanese investments and broader market access.
Donald Trump says he's struck another trade deal.
But I just signed the largest trade deal in history, I think maybe the largest deal in history, with Japan.
The deal sees a 15% tariff on the country's exports to the US, including cars. They had previously faced a 25% levy. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said the deal would also see Japan invest $550 billion in the US. And he said it would secure access to the Japanese market for US products, including rice. One analyst said it was a better outcome than expected for Japan and would allow the country to avoid recession. In Tokyo, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba welcomed the deal. He said it marked the lowest rate set for countries that have a trade surplus with the US, and added it would not sacrifice Japanese agriculture, even if it did allow more access for US produce. It all marks the biggest agreement yet struck by Washington since the tariff turmoil began. Japan is America's fifth largest trading partner in goods, with two-way trade between the pair worth almost $230 billion last year. The news sent stocks higher in Tokyo on Wednesday, with the Nikkei index up around 3% by lunchtime. Automakers were among the top gainers, with Mazda and Subaru both surging more than 15%. Trump also flagged the possibility of more deals to come.
And we have Europe coming in tomorrow, and the next day we have some other ones coming in.
Trump aides are now scrambling to do more deals before his August 1st deadline for agreements. However, the president has said that many countries will simply get letters telling them what their rate is.
Tropical storm Wipa struck northern Thailand, unleashing heavy rains over Nan province today. Residents are wading through waist-high muddy floodwaters, with local officials urging continuous vigilance as relief efforts ramp up after storm's landfall in Vietnam yesterday.
Tropical storm Wipa made landfall in Vietnam's northern province of Ninh Binh and Thanh Hoa on Tuesday afternoon, bringing with it heavy rains and wind speeds reaching up to 74 kilometers per hour, according to Vietnam's National Center for Hydrometeorological Forecasting. The storm had slowed from about 100 kilometers per hour as it approached the Vietnamese coast, but still caused significant disruption. The storm's powerful winds and intense rainfall quickly overwhelmed local drainage systems in several areas, leading to flash flooding and the evacuation of hundreds of families in vulnerable low-lying zones. Vietnam's disaster management authorities confirmed 1 fatality and at least 1 person missing as a result of the storm, while dozens of homes and roads sustained damage. After crossing into Laos and weakening to a tropical depression, Wipa continued dumping heavy rains across the mountainous terrain and into northern Thailand, where its impact has been particularly pronounced in the province of Nan. In Thailand, the effects of the storm began to intensify earlier today as persistent downpours caused flash flooding in Nan's residential and commercial areas. Video footage from local broadcasters showed residents wading through waist-deep muddy water, while small vehicles were seen nearly submerged. The floods have disrupted local transportation networks, forcing the suspension of public bus services and temporarily closing multiple roads. Emergency response teams, including rescue personnel and military units, have been deployed across the province to assist residents, distribute relief supplies, and manage traffic diversions. Nan's municipal authority has issued 3 official public statements urging residents to remain on high alert, to move belongings to higher ground, and to prepare emergency kits. Local shelters have been opened in school gymnasiums and religious centers to help displaced families. Meanwhile, Thailand's meteorological department has warned that the heavy rainfall is expected to continue over the next 48 hours, especially in northern and northeastern provinces, raising fears of additional flash floods and potential landslides in elevated regions.
Russia and Ukraine are meeting right now in Istanbul for the 3rd round of peace talks. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed the talk aims to revive dialogue amid ongoing conflict, with hopes for progress towards a lasting ceasefire.
As of today, Russia and Ukraine have convened in Istanbul for another critical round of peace negotiations, marking a renewed effort to end months of intense fighting. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky publicly confirmed the talks are underway, emphasizing the importance of dialogue despite ongoing hostilities. These negotiations come amid increasing international pressure on both sides to seek diplomatic solutions and reduce civilian casualties. The Istanbul talks are being closely monitored by global leaders and organizations who view them as a potential turning point in the protracted conflict that has displaced millions and destabilized the region. The meeting in Istanbul represents a continuation of prior diplomatic attempts to broker peace between Russia and Ukraine, following several rounds of talks that have so far yielded limited progress. Key issues expected to dominate discussions include ceasefire implementation, territorial disputes, prisoner exchanges, and humanitarian corridors. Both sides have maintained firm stances on sovereignty and security guarantees, complicating negotiations. However, the urgency of alleviating humanitarian crises and economic disruptions has pushed negotiators to explore compromises. Observers note that while mistrust remains high, the shared desire to prevent further escalation provides a fragile basis for dialogue.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Russia has launched July Storm, a sprawling naval exercise starting today to the 27th of July, involving over 150 vessels, 15,000 military personnel and 120 aircraft and 10 coastal missile systems in the Pacific, Arctic and Baltic and Caspian Seas, focusing on advanced weaponry and unmanned technologies.
Russia has commenced its large-scale naval exercise called July Storm, which will run from today to the 27th of July and involve over 150 vessels, around 15,000 military personnel, 120 aircraft, and 10 coastal missile systems deployed across multiple maritime theaters, including the Pacific Ocean, Arctic Ocean, Baltic Sea, and Caspian Sea. This marks one of the most extensive Russian naval drills in recent years, with participation from all major fleets. The Northern Fleet, operating in Arctic waters, the Pacific Fleet based in the Far East, the Baltic Fleet in Europe, and the Caspian Flotilla inland. The Defense Ministry highlighted that the exercise is designed to test the combat readiness of the Navy across a variety of scenarios, ranging from traditional maritime engagements to emerging threats such as unmanned and remotely operated weapon systems. It also reflects Moscow's intent to maintain its strategic presence and assert naval power in key geopolitical regions where it faces increasing scrutiny and rivalry from NATO and other global actors. The scale and complexity of these drills signal Russia's ambitions to modernize and integrate new technologies into its maritime forces, while demonstrating its ability to operate simultaneously across vast and diverse maritime environments. The July Storm exercises focus heavily on preparing Russian naval crews for non-standard or unconventional operations, which include responses to asymmetric threats and the integration of cutting-edge technologies such as unmanned underwater vehicles, drones, and a long-range precision missile system. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, participating warships and their crews will participate rapid deployment to designated combat zones, simulate anti-submarine warfare tactics, and conduct the defense of a critical maritime economic zone.
Armed men fired on convoy evacuating civilians from Syria's Swida province amid ongoing violence between Druze fighters and Sunni Bedouin militants. The US-backed truce faces major challenges as clashes continue to threaten minority safety in southern Syria.
Tensions in Syria's southern Swida province escalated sharply last week as clashes between Druze fighters and Sunni militants erupted into deadly violence, with hundreds reported killed. Yesterday, a convoy evacuating hundreds of civilians from Swida came under fire as it passed through the Tara area. Video footage captured chaotic scenes of crowds surrounding Red Crescent buses while gunfire echoed nearby, highlighting the volatility of the situation despite ongoing ceasefire efforts. This violence unfolded just days after a fragile truce was brokered with US backing, intended to halt the bloodshed and facilitate the release of hostages held by both sides. The ceasefire, which took hold on Sunday, also allowed security forces to deploy on Swida's outskirts in hopes of stabilizing the region. The roots of the conflict trace back to deep-seated mistrust between the predominantly Druze population of Swida and Sunni Muslim groups, whose rivalries were inflamed by the complex dynamics of Syria's prolonged civil war. Druze fighters, wary of the Islamist-led government and its Sunni allies, have resisted perceived threats to their communities, while groups have clashed with both Druze and government forces. The Syrian government, under interim President Ahmed al-Sharaa, dispatched troops to quell the fighting but has been accused of committing violations against the Druze population, further complicating efforts for peace. Sharaa, who represents a leadership with Sunni Islamist roots, opposed to the Alawite-dominated Assad regime, has condemned the violence and vowed to hold accountable those responsible, emphasizing the Druze as a fundamental part of Syria's national fabric.
6 miners have been rescued alive after a shaft collapsed at an informal gold mining site in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo over the weekend, while rescue teams continue digging for other trapped underground amid growing fears for their survival.
An unknown number of miners are trapped underground at this gold mine in eastern Congo. Rescue efforts were continuing here on Tuesday after a shaft collapsed on Sunday. Miner Kulondwa Mapendano said up to 30 people could have been in the shaft. His friends had been working there overnight on Saturday, he said, and never returned to where they sleep. The Lemera artisanal mine in South Kivu province is a sprawling site of makeshift tents, sandbags and basic mining equipment. It's known for its precarious working conditions. Christophe Badesire is one of its miners.
I don't know how many people were there, because the day before yesterday we heard screams. But we thought it was our friends panicking, as usual here at the quarry. It was only in the morning that we learnt there had been a collapse.
Local sources said dozens may have been affected, though no official figures have been released.
Legendary heavy metal pioneer Ozzy Osbourne has died at 76. Surrounded by family in Birmingham, England, has loved ones confirmed. The Black Sabbath frontman famed for shaping the genre with albums like Paranoid passed peacefully yesterday.
The legendary heavy metal pioneer Ozzy Osbourne is dead.
Come on! 1, 2, 3!
The singer's death was announced by his family, who said he was surrounded by love. Coming out of Birmingham, England, John Michael Ozzy Osbourne and his bandmates crafted a new, darker musical world from ashes of the 1960s idealism. Black Sabbath's second album, Paranoid, released in 1970, was Rolling Stone's #1 metal album of all time. An arresting frontman, Osbourne acquired the nickname Prince of Darkness, but he struggled with substance abuse and left the band later that decade. His subsequent solo career and collaborations with musicians like Randy Rhoads saw hits like Mr. Crowley and Crazy Train.
It's not too late.
Osbourne's third act came in the early 2000s, when he and his family became reality TV stars on MTV's The Osbournes.
The Osbournes television TV show, the reality thing, was just primarily an experiment. that went crazy, you know.
Osbourne announced his Parkinson's disease diagnosis in 2020. And just weeks ago, he reunited with Black Sabbath for one final farewell show in their hometown of Birmingham. Ozzy Osbourne was 76.
Let's jump into a short commercial break. More world news and more stories just after this. Welcome back. Camera traps have filmed wild bears expertly selecting and scratching trees, shimming up trunks across forest. Researchers say this seemingly mundane action offers clues into communication, territory marking and health monitoring as well, shedding new light on bear ecology.
The sweet relief of scratching an itch. These bears seem to be experts at finding the right trees to get the job done. Cameras placed in forests capture them shimmying up and down tree trunks all over the forest. Scientists say this adorable but mundane behavior might be able to teach them more about these animals. Researchers in Turkey have reportedly found bears also use certain trees to leave scent marks. It's a way of marking their territory and communicating with other animals. Scientists are now studying the characteristics of the trees, such as their height, age, species, and location. The scent trees are being put under protection so as not to interfere with the scents being absorbed by them. Will humans be able to decipher the messages these bears are trying to convey to each other? They certainly hope so. If nothing else, they get to see these furry giants do a little dance while they think no one is watching.
A virtual heart health at home cardiac rehabilitation program significantly cut patients' readmissions following cardiac events, yielding a 53% reduction on heart-related hospital returns versus standard care in randomized 100-day virtual cardiology trial published earlier this year. Take a look.
At 81, Chris Sears has had a quintuple bypass. His recovery has been smooth sailing, which he credits to a virtual rehabilitation program, Heart Health at Home.
For me, it was very successful. It meant that I could do it at home. I could do it at my own pace.
The 6 to 8 week scheme is offered online through an app, while specialist nurses call weekly to check in.
So how have you been feeling this last week?
The personalised care delivered in the comfort of the patient's home. The app provides a tailored exercise program and nutrition advice, blood pressure and heart rate monitoring, along with vital medication reminders.
It's one-on-one, so it's their personalised care rather than a group as well.
A study by the Baker Heart and Diabetes Institute found participants recorded a 71% reduction in hospital readmission days within a 3-month period.
The patients were eating better, they were exercising more, they were less depressed, less anxious, so their quality of life was better.
This provides now an option for people to undertake cardiac rehabilitation and still get great outcomes doing it a different way.
We would love to see this type of program rolled out into the public sector across the country where it can make a very real difference.
And with that, we come to the end of today's edition of World News Tonight. With the hopes of seeing you again, I'm Akwel Qureshi, and we'll leave you tonight with the visuals of the National Ballet of Japan debuting in the UK with Giselle. Also, don't forget to send in your feedback through our email address on feedback.8024english@derana.lk or via WhatsApp line on 076 805 7933. On the other side, we've got Prashant Gunavardhan, who'll be joining you next on Nightly Business Report. Thank you for watching. Good night.